Good afternoon, EDH enthusiasts. I'm Flynn, and welcome to a Commander deck video. Bloomburrow has brought us 4 new Commander decks, and each of the cover commanders has brought a really fun and unique design that makes it a creative wonderland for us brewers. Some are a little more straightforward, and others are not so obvious. But one of the legendary creatures that's caught my eye was none other than Bello, Bard of the Brambles, a 3/3 raccoon bard for 1, a red, and a green. He has 1 ability. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and each non-aura enchantment you control with a mana value of 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types, and has indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This card is nuts and is probably my new favorite gruel-colored legend. But going off of what the Precon deck does, it can be a little confusing. See, the animated army deck that you get Bello from tries to go in 2 different directions simultaneously, an artifact-themed deck and an enchantment-themed deck. These 2 strategies don't quite mesh as smoothly as we'd like, and so to make Bello really work, we need to pick one of these 2 directions and run with it. The deck that we will be discussing here will largely focus on the enchantment side of things, using them as our primary game plan and minimizing the artifacts. But first, if you're looking for a solid deck box to hold your beloved commander decks in style, check out Arcane Fortress. Their line of Radiant deck boxes come with strong magnetic closures, a removal tray for dice and counters, and gorgeous stained glass inspired artwork. Their box's soft interior will give your cards a comfy place to live without worry that your cards will become damaged. They also offer playmats featuring the same beautiful artwork. There are currently 6 designs available, 1 for each of the 5 colors of magic, and the 6th, my personal favorite, a pink Blossom Grace design. Some of my favorite decks, such as Chatterfang, Keurig, and the Mimeoplasm, each live in one of these boxes. If you want a discount on your first order, click the link in the description, and using our affiliate link will help support us in providing you with more Commander content. To start off, one of the best sets of tools that we have with an enchantment deck is our wide array of Enchantress cards. These give us value just off of playing enchantments, and so cards like Argothian Enchantress, Eidolon of Blossoms, Setessan Champion, Verduran Enchantress, and Enchantress's Presence are all great choices, as they will each draw us a card whenever we cast one of our enchantment spells. Destiny Spinner, while not technically an Enchantress, I will classify as one support card by rendering our creature and enchantment spells uncounterable, making it an incredibly valuable piece of tech against decks that want to counter our board. Now, since Bello wants us to prioritize enchantments with a mana value of 4 or greater, we do need to make sure that our ramp game is on point. I've included a good number of mana dorks and cards like Lotus Cobra to ensure that we can get our mana online quickly to begin dropping our enchantments. There are other cards though, like Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Fanatic of Ronus, Goblin Anarchomancer, and Herald of the Pantheon that will help mitigate some of the costs of these bulkier cards. Sanctum Weaver is an all-star here, as it can tap to add an amount of mana to our pool equal to the number of enchantments you control. Fanatic of Ronus is also an incredible mana dork to mention as well, as you will very often find its ferocious ability will be live. Bello makes all of our 4-drop or greater enchantments into 4/4 elementals, and so that'll allow the Fanatic to tap for 4 green. Later on, should it be graveyard bound, we can pay 4 mana to exile it from the graveyard and create a token copy of it, except that token copy is a 4/4 zombie snake druid, which would then allow it to tap for 4 just off of its own ability. So my biggest goal with this deck is to use our creature base as our ramp package, so then we can begin dropping in the value enchantments to use as our primary offensive force. I think Bello works great as an aggressive enchantment deck, as many of the cards in here are either going to increase our damage output or just exist as individual threats that opponents will struggle to deal with. Remember, during our turn, those specific enchantments are indestructible. Cards like Dictate of the Twin Gods, Furnace of Wrath, Gratuitous Violence all double the amount of damage that our enchantment creatures would deal to an opponent. City on Fire and a Fiery Emancipation triple the damage. These cards are your bread and butter, and you'll want them out as early as possible to ensure that you're dishing out as much damage as you can. 4/4 creatures are large enough to begin with, but then something like Berserker's Onslaught granting double strike, or Unnatural Growth doubling their power, let them deal at least 8 damage each, and so that number then multiplies as you have more of these in play. From there, we can lean into cards such as Garruk's Uprising, Nylea, God of the Hunt, to grant our creatures trample, meaning that a lot more of that damage will be getting through. Nylea's Colossus is an interesting addition to the deck. While Bellow is in play, this actually kind of works as a non-bow by reducing the size of the Colossus to being a 4/4 because it is a 7-mana enchantment. But its ability will still come in handy, doubling the power and toughness of any creature until the end of turn whenever it or another enchantment enters. This is a great way to bulk up something with trample to ensure that we can take out a player at a pivotal moment with something way too large to stop. I'm a huge fan of Glorious Sunrise, as you can choose a different mode each combat. Whether you want to give +1/+1 and trample to your board some turns, or give a single land a mana boost effect, or even drawing a card. Or if you're hurting for some reason for life, you can, I guess, gain 3 life. Nevinyrral's Disc can also be fun, as you can use it to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and since Bellow grants your cards indestructible, your Disc will remain in play after using this, as will your other larger enchantments. Bellow may die in the crossfire, but you can simply recast him and be back in business. Along those same lines, some uniquely one-sided board wipes like Blasphemous Act and Chain Reaction can take out opponents' boards while leaving ours intact. Bellow granting our enchantments indestructible makes damage-based board wipes a lot more beneficial to our game plan, since lethal damage can't kill an indestructible creature. This deck also goes quite heavy on the card draw, which is good to ensure that we can continue our momentum once we get going. In addition to our aforementioned Enchantress engine and our commander's combat damage based ability, we do have a few cards in this deck that will draw us cards as we develop our board state. Shamanic Revelation draws us a card for each creature we control, but we also will gain 4 life for each creature we control with power 4 or greater, which would be each of our animated 4/4 elementals. I'm normally not a huge fan of this card, but in this deck, we can easily get a ton of value out of its 2 abilities. Guardian Project is another great include, as it being a 4-drop enchantment means that Bellow being in play will make it enter as a 4/4 creature, which will also trigger itself as it enters, along with every creature you cast beyond it. This makes it more akin to the Enchantress cards, though it's not limited to only enchantments entering. Now, the main way that this deck seeks to win is by going large with our enchantments, and then basically overrunning the opponent with our huge creatures. We did include many ways to double, or in some cases triple, our damage output, and so it shouldn't take long for our combat damage to wipe out the table. We want our creatures to be large and swinging in, and because they have indestructible, we can do so without the fear of blockers trading with our valuable cards. I think this is a very funny but powerful deck, and I like what Bellow brings to the table. Enchantment decks do tend to feel very samey nowadays, but this being in Gruul colors gives it a much different flavor, much less the added edge of us being able to quite literally attack recklessly with our enchantments. You can of course take the opposite approach and build up a deck featuring artifacts instead of enchantments, and we may explore that build in a future video. But for now, that's going to put a lid on Bellow and his enchanted trash bin. What do you think of this deck? If you're interested in seeing the full deck list, we're going to put a link to the Moxfield page for this deck in the video description. You can playtest the deck there, duplicate it to your own account so you can tweak it based off of the list, and even purchase the whole deck off of websites like Card Kingdom or TCG Player. If you enjoyed this video, which I sincerely hope you did, likes and shares are the best way to help this channel continue growing. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and ring the bell so that you never miss a future video. Is there another Bloomburrow legend that we've yet to cover you'd like us to explore next? Let me know. As always, I thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Flynn, and I'll catch you all next video.